Imagine the endless, harsh sands of the Arabian Peninsula at the end of the 6th century. The city of Mecca. It was not just an oasis, but the beating heart of trade and pagan pilgrimage. It was a world ruled by the strict laws of tribal honor, where might made right, and poetry was valued as highly as gold. In this world, plagued by tribal warfare and superstition, a man was destined to be born who would change the course of human history forever. But his story does not begin with grandeur. It begins with deep personal tragedy. The story of an orphan who had nothing but his integrity. To understand Muhammad's origins, we must look deep into his lineage. He belonged to the noble but impoverished clan of Banu Hashim, part of the powerful Quraysh tribe. The Quraysh were the custodians of the Kaaba, an ancient sanctuary that, at the time, was filled with hundreds of idols. His grandfather, Abd al-Muttalib, was the chief of the Quraysh. He was a man of immense authority, known for his justice and for rediscovering the sacred well of Zamzam, which had been lost for generations. Abd al-Muttalib had many sons, but the most beloved, handsome, and noble among them was Abdullah. Abdullah married Amina bint Wahb, a young woman from a noble family in the city of Yathrib, now Medina. Their marriage was a union of two pure souls, but their happiness was short-lived. Just a few months after the wedding, Abdullah left with a merchant caravan to Sham, Syria. On his way back, he fell gravely ill and passed away in Yathrib, never getting to see his firstborn child. Amina was left a widow. Imagine her state, a young woman in a harsh patriarchal society, having lost her beloved husband, carrying a child whose father was taken away before he was even born. Muhammad was born in Mecca, according to the most widely accepted view, on the 12th of Rabi, al-Awwal in the year of the elephant, around 570 CE. This year was so named because shortly before the Prophet's birth, Abraha, the ruler of Yemen, marched upon Mecca with a massive army that included war elephants, intending to destroy the Kaaba. However, the city was miraculously saved by flocks of birds that rained stones down upon the invading army. Islamic chronicles, Sirah, recount that Amina's pregnancy was unusually easy. She did not experience the physical burdens typical for expectant mothers. On the night Muhammad was born, Amina saw a light emanating from her that illuminated the palaces of distant Sham. When the child was born, his grandfather Abd al-Muttalib took the infant in his arms, carried him to the Kaaba, and gave thanks to God. He gave him a name that was highly unusual among the Arabs of that era, Muhammad, which means the praised one. When the Quraysh asked why he didn't name the boy after his ancestors, the old leader replied, "I want him to be praised by God in the heavens and by mankind on earth." In Mecca at that time, there was a custom. Noble families sent their newborns to be raised by Bedouin, tribes living in the pure desert environment. Why was this done? First, Mecca's climate was harsh and stifling, often plagued by disease, whereas the clean desert air strengthened the child's health. Second, the Bedouins spoke the purest, classical Arabic, untouched by urban dialects. Third, the desert instilled courage, endurance, and self-reliance in young boys. Foster mothers from the Banu Sad tribe arrived in Mecca, looking for infants to nurse, for which the families would pay them. That year was marked by a severe drought. One of the foster mothers, a woman named Halima bint Abi Zuaib, arrived riding a frail donkey. Her camel did not have a single drop of milk, and her own baby was crying from hunger. All the foster mothers refused to take young Muhammad. Why? Because he was an orphan. The Arabs paid the foster mothers from the father's wealth, and the late Abdullah had left almost nothing behind. The women were looking for wealthy children. Halima was left with no one, reluctant to return to her tribe empty-handed. She told her husband, "By Allah, I will go and take that orphan." And the moment she took Muhammad into her arms, the blessings began. Her breasts filled with milk, and her own child calmed down and fell asleep. When they mounted their old donkey, it ran so fast that it outpaced the entire caravan, astonishing everyone. When they returned to the desert of Banu Sad, their barren land turned green. Their sheep produced abundant milk, and prosperity entered Halima's home. Muhammad grew remarkably fast, developing in a single month as much as other children did in 2. Muhammad spent about 4 to 5 years in the desert. He grew up among Halimah's children, helping them tend the sheep. This was his primary occupation. During his early childhood, shepherding from a young age taught him patience, attentiveness, and care for the weak. However, when he was around 4 years old, a terrifying event occurred that changed everything. Muhammad was playing with his foster brothers behind the houses. Suddenly, 2 men dressed in white garments appeared. They were angels, including Jibril or Gabriel. They laid the boy down, gently opened his chest, took out his heart, extracted a black clot from it, symbolizing human vulnerability to sin or Satan's portion, washed his heart with Zamzam water in a golden vessel, placed it back, and healed the wound. His foster brother ran to Halimah in absolute terror, crying, "Muhammad has been killed." When Halimah and her husband rushed to the scene, they found the boy standing pale but alive. A faint, barely visible scar remained on his chest. Fearing for the child's safety and believing he might be possessed by spirits, Halimah made the difficult decision to return Muhammad to his mother Amina in Mecca. Muhammad returned to the tender embrace of his mother. Amina showered him with love, trying to compensate for the absence of his father. When the boy turned 6, Amina decided to travel with him to Yathrib, Medina, to visit relatives and show her son the grave of his father, Abdullah. Their faithful servant, Ayman, accompanied them on this journey. They spent about a month in Yathrib, on their way back to Mecca, in the middle of the scorching desert at a place called Al-Abwa. Amina fell gravely ill. Her strength faded rapidly. Imagine this scene: 6-year-old Muhammad sitting by the bedside of his dying mother amidst the lifeless sands. Amina looked at her son and spoke words that would echo through the centuries. "Every living thing must die, but I leave behind a pure legacy." She passed away and was buried right there in Al-Abwa. Young Muhammad returned to Mecca with Ayman, now completely orphaned. His grandfather, Abd al-Muttalib, who was already over 80 years old, took over his guardianship. The elderly leader adored his grandson. A special cushion near the Kaaba was spread out exclusively for Abd al-Muttalib, where no one else dared to sit out of respect. But when young Muhammad would come and sit on it, his uncles would try to push him away. Abd al-Muttalib would stop them, saying, "Leave my boy alone. By God, a great future awaits him." But just 2 years later, when Muhammad was only 8 years old, his beloved grandfather also passed away. Before his death, Abd al-Muttalib entrusted the boy's care to his son, Abu Talib, the full brother of Muhammad's father. Abu Talib was not a wealthy man and had many children of his own, but he welcomed Muhammad as his own son, giving him the best place in his home and protecting him until the end of his days. Thus ended the childhood of a boy who lost everyone he loved, but gained an inner strength that would one day astound the world. In the next episode, we will explore how young Muhammad began to work, his first trading journey to Syria, the mysterious encounter with the Christian monk Barayare who recognized him as a prophet, and how he earned the title Al-Amin, the trustworthy, in the city of Mecca. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation of this epic story.